Ever wonder how you check every box and still feel empty inside? Welcome to Rewiring Health, the space for the woman who holds it all together on the outside while quietly losing pieces of herself on the inside. The woman who fawns to keep the peace, overachieves to feel worthy, and sacrifices her needs to avoid disappointing anyone. Here, you will learn a new way. Each episode will help you understand your nervous system, break the patterns that drain you, and rebuild a life rooted in self-respect, calm confidence, and genuine inner peace. I'm Kelly Kessler, and this is your homecoming. Let's dive in. There's a moment that happens for so many women in midlife, and it's quiet. You're doing all the right things. You read the books, you've tried the plans, you're committed. And yet somehow you feel like you're back at the beginning, again. Not because you don't care, not because you aren't capable, but because no one ever taught you the deeper skills required to actually sustain change. We've been taught to outsource our authority, to follow the protocol, to download the plan, to ask someone else what to eat, how to move, and how to live. But what if deep health isn't about more rules? What if it's about rebuilding your relationship with yourself? Today's guest, Courtney Townley, has spent over 2 decades helping women move beyond the cycle of dieting, burnout, and self-criticism and into something much deeper. She's the host of the highly rated Grace and Grit podcast, a certified nutrition coach through Precision Nutrition, a certified strength coach through the National Strength and Conditioning Association, and a certified life coach through the Life Coach School. But what I love most about Courtney's work is this. She doesn't just talk about food and fitness. She talks about identity, integrity, emotional capacity, and the renovation that midlife quietly invites us into. If you've ever felt disconnected from your body, frustrated that your habits don't stick, or exhausted from constantly starting over, this conversation is going to feel like exhaling. Have you ever noticed your skin reflects your stress? I used to struggle with mine, dry, dull, reactive, until I started pairing nervous system regulation with products that actually honor your body. That's why I love Milk and Butterflies. They handcraft every formula with 100% organic ingredients and powerful aromatherapy oils. They aren't just products for your skin, they're rituals that restore hydration, resilience, and calm even in the busiest seasons of our life. You can try them for yourself and feel the difference. Head to Milk and Butterflies and use my promo code Dr. Kelly for free shipping. That's DRKELLY for free shipping. Also, check out the link in the description for the podcast. Welcome back to Rewiring Health. So honored to have Courtney Townley on the podcast today. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We're just chatting for a little bit. There's going to be so much that's going to come out through this. But one thing I want to start with, because I was watching one of your reels and this really stuck out to me and something like it deeply resonated with me. And you talk about how we've relinquished our authority to external sources and that we don't look inward for our answers. We've so much looked outward. Can you share about your experience with that and how that shows up in so many women's lives?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say that not only am I a woman who has experienced that, like the constant outsourcing that someone out there knows better than I do, but I also pushed that as a professional for many years, right? I have the answer to all your health woes, and I can give you these cookie cutter protocols and give you these like very systematic pathways to create an outcome. And you know what? I still believe that to some point. I can help you create an outcome. But where the insourcing, which is what I call kind of that self-trust comes in, is you will never sustain any result you create unless you learn how to insource. So I talk about it as insourcing versus outsourcing. And I think that unfortunately, the wellness industry has really led us down this pathway that there's always someone else who knows better than you. And that just becomes so disheartening, especially at midlife, because it's like, we're busy and we're smart cookies and we've accomplished a lot of great things. Why can't we figure this part out? And I think that underneath that is really just an unwillingness to look for your own answers and to listen to what's true for you rather than constantly outsourcing.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I think this is something that's like not talked about enough, but needs to be because we can hear all the things. I mean, there's no shortage of reels and content saying what we should do, but if we're not filtering it through our own lens and knowing what's right for us, we can very much get lost in the mix of things that are right for other people, but not necessarily for us. And
Yeah, and we live in this very visual culture now, right? Like
Mhm.
especially of course with social media where it's like, well, because so and so looks a certain way, I should ask her what she eats in a day and how she exercises because if I do those same things, I'm going to get the same outcome. And like, that's so not true. That's not how it works.
Mhm.
And not only is our bio individuality so different, but the cultures we come from, our personal likes and dislikes, our genetic blueprints. I mean, there is so much to take into consideration when you consider the things that you want to be practicing for your health and well being, not just temporarily, but things that we can actually sustain over the long term.
Absolutely. And then this can be, you say disheartening. Absolutely. It can be like a big spiral effect too. Like I'm doing all the things, I'm doing this and that, I'm listening to the right things. And like you can be doing all the things and still not get the results you want. And then sometimes you can internalize that, like, what's wrong with me? Why does it work for her and not for me? And that's a
Yeah, and it's
huge
it's it's
trap.
internalized, but it's also conditioned. Like
Yeah.
we're getting this messaging from the industry at large that, well, if this system or protocol doesn't work for you, it's obviously you because this works for everybody else, which of course is never true, right?
Mhm.
It's just sort of the smoke and mirror effect.
Absolutely. And I know you said you've had that experience in your life. Do you mind sharing a little of your story? Like what led you to your messaging and how you help women now in midlife?
Yeah. So I always say that I came in through the gateway of diet and exercise, as so many people do, but literally as a professional. So I was a professional dancer. When I was leaving the professional dance world, it made a lot of sense that I go into teaching movement because I was a mover and I loved it. It was amazing. But what I really learned quickly into my career was that I thought people were coming to learn how to be better movers. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying that they weren't, they wanted that benefit. But they really were coming to work with me because they just wanted to feel better in their bodies, about their lives, about who they were as people. And I was so ill equipped to help them with those pieces because all I knew was movement.
Mhm.
And so I always think of like the proverbial onion. Like I just kept peeling back the layers of what I really didn't know. I went on to get education in nutrition. I went on to get education in behavior change science, and really kind of got to this place where I was heavily, heavily rooted in the fat loss industry.
Mhm.
And for about a decade of my career, I was giving people protocols to help them strip fat off their bodies and build muscle tissue. And it was insanely effective
Mhm.
until it wasn't, right? Until people got to their goal and I slowly started to watch people kind of go down the slippery slope back to where they started. And I was like, okay, hang on a second. Like they just dedicated a year, 18 months of their life to creating something that they said they really wanted. And how come they can't stay there? And that just took me down a whole different rabbit hole of what's missing from this diet and exercise conversation. Because diet and exercise, there's no one listening to this that doesn't probably realize the importance of those two things. What we put in our mouth and how much we move our body, of course it matters. But it's a very small piece of the health equation. Like health is the wholeness of the human. And there's a lot that goes into the wholeness of a human. It's our psychology, it's our ability to be with emotion, it's our relationships, because everything in life is relationship. Yes, it's of course physical components, but I feel like we just put, especially women's health, in this tiny, tiny box of diet and exercise. And we weren't really equipping women with the skills that they needed to sustain any kind of change they created. And that's what I became so interested in. So, what I realized ultimately was that where's the education around parenting our brains, like learning how to kind of be our own coach? And where's the education about building emotional capacity and learning how to organize your life in a way that isn't completely exhausting your nervous system? And this is an especially relevant topic, I think, for the midlife population because hormones are so dramatically shifting. In fact, our capacity to tolerate stress is really diminishing because we no longer have estrogen and progesterone on board in the way that we once did. And so, if we do not take into consideration how we're living our lives around the midlife years, we can get ourselves into a whole lot of trouble. And so I always call midlife the renovation years because it's really an opportunity to just look at the way you've been living your life that is helpful to your wholeness and what are the ways you've been living your life that are actually harmful to your wholeness.
I want to take a brief moment to pause from the episode to share something that I've noticed so many women struggle with, and maybe this resonates with you, that you do not feel safe to honor your own needs. You might be the one who learned how to be easy, capable, and reliable, and yet you're tired of overriding yourself. You're tired of explaining your no, you're tired of feeling guilty for wanting space, and tired of shrinking your truth to keep the peace. The thing that most people don't realize is that you can't actually protect your peace without a sense of inner safety. And without that safety, boundaries feel harsh, guilt feels unavoidable, and self-respect feels like something you're constantly working at instead of resting into. If you have that quiet, steady craving for self-respect, the kind that lives in your body, Self-Respect Reset was created for you. It's a guided, body-based experience designed to help you rebuild inner safety, trust yourself again, and honor your needs without guilt, explanation, or self-abandonment. If this speaks to you, you can find the link to join in the show notes. Now back to the episode. Yeah, that self-awareness is such a key piece rather, because you can go so much of your life just in the automatic phases of like you're raising your kids, you're in your job, like you never ever stop to like pause and be like, is this working? But yet you can feel the emptiness in yourself, you can feel the exhaustion, you can feel you're on the brink of burnout. But it's amazing like how we don't pause to say like, what do I need to subtract? What do I need to add? What is not working for me in this life?
Well, and I think there's two reasons for that. Like, reason number one is it's not sexy. There's nothing sexy about self-awareness.
Right. So true. Yes.
It's like you being alone with you and kind of looking at, like, with radical honesty, looking at the reality of your life. That is not sexy. That is not a fun sales pitch. And also, I would say, second to that is self-awareness is not a feel-good exercise. It's just not, because what it's doing is it's calling us into work. And how convenient to avoid the very thing that is going to call you into work. So I understand why we avoid self-awareness. It just feels like one more thing on top of a laundry list of things to do. But Martha Beck says it beautifully. She always says that awareness is the way out. And it's so true. It's as simple as that. If you are not willing to look at what's truly going on in your life, you're probably not going to change, not in any meaningful way.
Right. Yeah. It's like, it's so easy to get into those patterns where even if they don't help us or serve us, it's like they're familiar. We know them.
Yeah.
We know what the outcome is. So it's like easy just to stay in them versus make the shift, which is effortful. And our brains try to avoid that.
Absolutely.
It can be so challenging.
And we live in a world that's giving us these Band-Aid fixes. Take this supplement, do this detox, do this 6-day program, like, focus on anything and everything, but the actual problems.
Right.
And so I think, again, we're sold this false bill of goods that it's just about, better nutrition and more movement. And again, there's validity in that. However, if we aren't looking at why we're doing the things that we're doing in the first place, like why are you eating a bag of chips every night at 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Why are you avoiding going to the gym you've been paying for 6 years? Right? Like it's the why behind the what. And we don't talk about that in the industry. We just talk about the what.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that deeper root cause of like, what is going on? We're just seeing the symptoms, trying to change the symptoms, but the roots are still in there. You're just plucking the leaves, hoping that it won't grow back, and it just comes right back.
It's so true. That's such a great way to say it.
Yeah. It's one thing as you were saying earlier, just like resonating with me is like how you were, you're helping the women, they like went back to their old patterns. It's like, I know Ed Milet talks about this. It's like your thermostat. You have a certain thermostat setting. You can increase the temperature, but it's going to come right back down to what it was or what it knows. And I would love for, I'm curious to go a little bit deeper in there. Like, for those women that you were seeing, they go right back to the patterns. What was that deeper thing that was going on behind the scenes? Like, what did you find that was the missing piece that wasn't allowing them to make these changes long term?
Oh, hands down, it's their self-narrative. It's their self-identity. They didn't change the way that what they believed about themselves. So therefore, your brain does an amazing job at proving you right. So if you're giving it evidence that you're always going to struggle with your weight, that you're lazy, that you'll never be an athlete, that something's wrong with you, right? Like if you keep giving it that narrative, it doesn't matter what you accomplish. Your brain is going to kind of run your life based on that narrative.
Mhm.
So if you are not shifting and renovating the self narrative along the path to change, you can pretty much guarantee that any change you make will be fleeting.
Mhm. Yeah.
So identity change is just a massive, massive part of any kind of behavior change. And it really comes down to getting very curious and very inquisitive about what you believe about yourself and your life. And I don't think, sometimes we get really into the why do I believe those things? And I think that can be helpful. It can be helpful to recognize that, oh, I had some trauma as a kid. I think it can be helpful to recognize, oh, someone said that to me when I was younger and I just never let go of it.
Mhm.
We have experiences that shape us. And there's grace in recognizing that. But I think we have to be careful that we're not using the why as a reason to avoid the work. Because you
Mhm.
can spend a decade or the rest of your life analyzing the reasons why you have your current identity.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
the bottom line is it doesn't really matter at the end. What matters is that you see your identity is not helpful. Your self-identity is not helping you to be the kind of person you want to be. And so we have to start making some very conscious choices. And we have to very consciously shift the self narrative to start changing that narrative or to start changing that identity. That's
Yeah.
really the important work.
Yeah, it's powerful. And for someone who's listening and they're like looking at their external world and like, this is not what I want, but they're
Yeah.
not really sure what they're identifying as because it's just like sometimes you can't see when your nose is
Yes.
against the painting. Like,
Yes.
how can that person that's maybe listening to this, like, how can they start to shift that and how can they start to recognize what they are identifying as so they can start to make their external world mirror their internal world?
Yeah. I think the place that I start with most of my clients is I take them through an exercise called your power vision. And power vision is getting clarity on what it looks like when you are truly standing in your power with purpose and with impact in your life. How does that version of you behave?
Mhm.
How does she think about herself? How does she get up in the morning? How does she dress? How does she deal with problems? How does she set boundaries? Like, there's no end to the list of questions you could ask yourself about that. But we do an exercise in kind of getting some clarity around what your power vision is. And then out of that, we create a power statement. And the statement is simply finishing this phrase: as a woman standing fully in my power with purpose and making an impact, I'm a woman who what? Right? Like just and list out, it could be 12 pages long. I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter how long your power statement is. Eventually you'll consolidate it because you'll want to remember it. But initially just write, like, what does this actually mean to you? And then it gets a lot easier to realize, like to recognize where you currently are in relationship to that.
Mhm.
Right.
Powerful.
So if I'm not a woman who sets boundaries with grace and ease, what kind of woman am I right now? Well, I'm a woman who kind of lets people walk all over my boundaries.
Mhm.
I don't really hold or protect my own boundaries. I don't even verbalize my boundaries. Like, what a great thing to know.
Yeah.
But here's the tricky part. When women start looking at the reality of where they currently are in relationship to their power vision, that's where all the judgment and self criticism starts to come in. And I will repeat this phrase for as long as I am a coach. You cannot be curious and judgmental at the same time. So you
Mhm.
either get to be curious about why you're behaving the way you currently are, or you get to be judgmental. You can't be both. And there's really no benefit to being judgmental because being judgmental makes you feel like hell. And when you feel like hell, what do? You make a lot of decisions that make you feel even worse.
Mhm.
So let's not do that. Like, let's really just greet ourselves with curiosity like, oh, isn't it interesting that
Mhm.
every time I try to set a boundary with this person, I kind of retreat from the situation? I don't feel powerful. How might I go about this differently? Like the next time I'm in this position, because you know it's coming, right? You know it's coming down the pipeline pretty soon. So that's kind of the gateway that I use to get my clients to really start thinking about where do you want to be and where are you currently and where are the gaps between those two places?
Mhm.
What are the skill sets we need to learn to narrow the gap?
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. And
it.
just being, yeah, I love that word curious because it is such a powerful word, but it's so open versus like when you think about judgment, it's closed, it's constricted. There's no room for growth with judgment.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you get curious, it's that, oh, I wonder what my life could be like if I think a little differently. I wonder what life would be like if I thought, lived a little bit differently. It has so much power in it for moving ourselves forward in it. So I love that. And I love also how you differentiate that there is no judgment and curiosity at the same time. Like, so it makes it that simple of like a choice. Like, are you going to choose judging yourself or are you going to choose that curiosity for yourself in this moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that gap, I will say, like really represents, I always say the problem that I help people solve now is helping them to soften an integrity pain. And
Mhm.
integrity pain is the gap.
Mhm.
It's the very real internal friction that we feel when we are living our life out of alignment with what we actually want.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, how do we lessen integrity pain for you? Because if we can start doing that work, you are going to be so much happier and so much healthier.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because integrity pain causes a tremendous amount of unnecessary stress.
Mhm. Absolutely. And like for someone who's like feeling that, and they're like, okay, I know that my values are this, but like my actions are not speaking
Yeah.
that. But yet they feel the pressure to show up in a certain way, maybe by family, friends, or spouse or whatever, because that's the version they know.
Yeah.
Can you go like dive into that a little bit deeper? Because that can be really challenging where you're like, I know I want something different, but I serve a role in people's lives where I'm having to fit into that. And that's where
Yeah.
that tension is.
So I'll say two things. I have never, ever in 30 years met a woman who did not know what she could do to move out of integrity pain.
Mhm.
That has never been a conversation. I've had women try that with me, say, I don't know. And I'll say, really? Is that really true? And I'll poke and ask some really good questions. And of course, by the end of the conversation, they've revealed a lot that they could be doing to move the needle of progress. So I think the narrative that a lot of women are telling themselves is they don't know.
Mhm.
And ladies listening, I want you to just admit that you're lying to yourself. It's not true. The bigger truth is you don't like what your knowing is revealing because again, it's calling you into work. But the second thing I want to say is I think when it comes to others, we're so afraid of other people's discomfort, which is wild
Mhm.
because isn't it crazy that I am going to live the rest of my life misaligned because I don't want you to be uncomfortable with decisions that I know are right for me?
Mhm. Yeah,
Like really think about that for a second. That is insane.
it is. Yeah.
And here's a way maybe to just kind of give yourself and others a little grace with this is that the human brain does not like change. That's a fact. The human brain loves homeostasis. It likes things to stay the same. It likes predictability. It likes certainty. And so when you start to change, even if it's for the better, it does make other people uncomfortable because their human brain is going, "Oh my God, what's happening here?
Mhm.
I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know. Is she going to leave me? Is she going to abandon me? Is she going to," right? Because
Mhm.
even though that seems so extreme, that's just what human brains do because we're always in the pursuit of survival. And so when things in our environment or the people around us start to shift, it kind of freaks us out.
Mhm.
But the truth is, if people truly love you and respect you and want the best for you, they will rumble with their own discomfort. And they will get to a point where they start to see that, oh, this is actually a great thing. She's happier. Our relationship is going better. Like, this is a great thing for everybody. But it just takes a little bit of time. So, I would just say to anyone listening, the things that you know you could be doing to improve your health and happiness, just expect that it is going to make other people uncomfortable because it is.
Mhm.
And that is not your work, that is their work. You don't have to rationalize everything you do. You don't have to go into a long like dissertation about why you're doing what you're doing. In fact, I have a saying, I've used this with my husband for years. Sometimes I will do things that he doesn't understand, right? He doesn't understand like why I'm shifting something in my business or why I need a day by myself or whatever it is. And of course, as someone who cares about the relationship, I do my due diligence to try to help him understand. But sometimes it comes to the point where I just say, you know what, babe? I don't really need you to understand. I just need you to respect that I know what's best for me. And that's it.
Hmm.
Just accept that I am making this decision out of kindness and respect for myself. And that's enough. And just trust me in that. And so I just want to offer that to your listeners because sometimes it is just, I don't really need you to understand this. I just need you to respect it, that this is the right decision for me. And I hope you'll be able to love me through it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much to unpack there because I mean, all of that is like spot on. And that's been my experience too. It's like when you start to stand in your power, it does often cause a lot of ruffling of feathers in, with the people closest to you. But what I found, it becomes that filter for knowing who's with you and who's not with you, who wants the smaller version of you and who's willing to allow you to grow with them and grow with you. And so it becomes a huge filter for the people that are there to respect you and the ones who are there to perpetuate your neglect of yourself.
Yeah. And you're spot on. Like in the people who are in your life, that your power offends them in
Mhm.
some way, that's a red flag.
Totally.
That is a red flag. That is something to stay wildly curious about.
Hmm. Yeah.
Why is this person afraid of me, of
Mhm.
my growth, of my expansion, of my power? That's concerning.
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's so powerful to have these conversations because if you are on your growth journey, knowing that this is part of the process, that there are going to be people who are disappointed with you, people who are going to come back at you, give you a little bit of backlash, like
Yep.
that's part of the journey and becomes more of just that validation that you're on the right path, that you're changing, you're shifting. Because if you're not getting that, then you're not changing. Because if everything was comfortable, you're still in the same spot. So it's knowing that that's part of the process, even though there can be a lot of grief with it.
It's so true. And just to offer another perspective, because I think this is kind of a different take on it, there
Mhm.
will be people in your life, like I think of my parents.
Mhm.
I know they love me unconditionally, right? They want the best for me. They always have. I know not everyone has those parents, but I
Mhm.
do. And I feel very fortunate to have that. But I will say there have been choices that I have made in my life that they did not agree with because it freaked their brain out. They
Mhm.
thought I was going to be out of a job. They thought I would never find love. They kind of go to the extreme of, I want this so much for you. And I fear that the decision that you're making is going to lead you down a different path.
Mhm.
And in those moments, I really had to coach myself into understanding that having my own back was more important than the validation from anyone else in my life, including my own parents.
Mhm.
And it's
Absolutely.
never led me astray.
Mhm.
I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've definitely taken a lot of hits in my lifetime, but it all led to something really good. And I wouldn't trade any of it for anything.
Yeah.
And so even when other people are struggling to support you, despite knowing that they love you deeply, I think it's just a deeper call into loving yourself and respecting yourself enough to do it anyway.
Yeah.
If you
Such a
truly
powerful
feel like
point.
it's the right thing.
Mhm. Oh my God, so powerful. Because you will not regret going after something, even if it is a mistake, even if it is something that's maybe leading you down another path. But if you made the decision based off of what you authentically thought was right, then it's like you can live with that. But if you're basing your decisions off of what other people want for you, that can lead you down a whole path of regret of not
Yeah.
not living what's authentically right for you because you have this life. This is your life.
And even if it's people you love and respect, right? Because
Yeah.
there's hopefully everyone listening has those people in your life. And we can constantly be looking for validation from those people. And that can be just as problematic, right? As looking for validation from people that really give that don't care about you at all.
Mhm.
So for me, I remember a moment where I just consciously decided I had to divorce myself from the opinions of my parents
Mhm.
because they were looking at it through a lens of protection.
Mhm.
And I was looking at my choices through a lens of expansion. And those are two very different lenses.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I did. I just consciously made that choice. And then I've never really, on matters that I know I'm pretty certain about, like decisions that I know I'm pretty convicted to, I don't even ask what they think about it because it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
I love you. I hope that you can love me through this and support me through this. But what you think about it when I've already made up my mind, it's just not relevant here.
Hmm. Yeah, so powerful. And it's because like we can often see ourselves through everybody else's lens, but never see ourselves through our own lens. And
Yeah.
that's so powerful when you're taking that stand of like, I'm gonna live my life, respect myself, love myself, validate myself, even if you don't agree with it. But I think that's powerful to say, like, that you can love others and they can love you, even if you choose something different. That's that mutual respect of like letting people make their own decisions, allowing them to make the choices they make and loving them through it, not trying to control the narrative of
Yeah.
people. So
Just
powerful.
it's that whole concept of holding space for someone.
Mhm.
Holding
Yeah.
space is just that I love you and I'm holding the space for you to be successful with whatever it is you're going after.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to navigate it for you. I'm not going to put my rumble with it on your plate,
Mhm.
right? That's my own work and I'm going to stand back and hold space for you in this, but I'm not going to try to influence it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that again, it's such a powerful comment and something that can be really hard for many people to live when there is like so much like if you live in fear, the first initial thing is to control, but it's like really when you live in love, you allow. And you're allowing that, and just as you said, holding that space, there's so much power for expansion and growth in that when you have that. And I want to love to go into more of like, I know you talk about perfectionism versus like consistency. Do you mind
Yeah.
just sharing that? Because that's something that a lot of women listen to this. They're high achievers. They're going, 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 trying to make everything perfect or at least look perfect on the outside. Do you mind just sharing your experience with that about perfectionism and how that can often lead us astray?
Yeah. I would say, in the most simple terms, that perfectionism, hands down, is a hiding habit.
Mhm.
It's just a way of hiding from rumbling with failure and disappointment and hard things. Because if I convince myself that I'm not going to go after something until the timing is perfect, until I'm perfect, until the situation is perfect, well, guess what that means? It means you never have to go after it because
Mhm.
perfect never comes. And also everyone has it. If you asked 30 different people in a room to define a perfect whatever the scenario is, they'd all describe it in a different way because perfection means something different to everybody.
Mhm.
And so whose standard are you using to quantify perfect? That's
Yeah.
something to consider.
Mhm.
But definitely perfectionism is a hiding habit and it's for scared people because again, we hide behind the rationale of perfection to not actually dig deeper into our practices and into going after the things that we want.
Mhm.
Um, and that's one of, I mean, I talk about this a lot in my book, The Hiding Habits, because I think when it comes to behavior change, identity change, there's so many ways that we hide
Mhm.
for all the reasons we mentioned earlier. It's just not fun.
Mhm.
It's kind of inconvenient. It's more work on top of an already busy schedule. So there's a lot of reasons we want to hide and we all do it. So please, nobody listening to this, I don't want you to hear like that you're being judged. You're not. This is such a human thing.
Mhm.
But recognizing that perfectionism is really just an unwillingness to mess up
Mhm.
and be sloppy. And change is very sloppy. It
Mhm.
just is.
Yeah. Yeah. What are just out of curiosity, what are like maybe two more of the hiding habits? What are that people
Oh
might be
gosh, we could do a whole
utilizing?
podcast on this. Yeah. Let's see. Some of my favorites are focusing on everyone else's problems so you never have to focus on yours,
Hmm. Yep.
right? Having a to-do list so full of things that aren't important that you never have time for things that are.
Mhm. Yeah.
Never organizing or scheduling your own self-care so you don't have anything to hold yourself accountable to,
Mhm.
right? Like how convenient.
Yeah.
Never looking at data, like avoiding the bank accounts, avoiding, your physical markers in terms of your blood profiles, avoiding, your annual exam at the doctor's office. What a great way to hide,
Hmm.
right? Because if I don't face the data, I don't have to face the reality.
Hmm.
And so that can be really convenient. So I really truly believe that hiding habits, like so many habits, are a way of protecting our nervous system. It just is because we're already living very amped up lives. We're already very stressed out. And so the idea of leaning into the work that our life is calling us into to change, to make ourselves healthier, to make ourselves happier, it feels almost like just that is causing more stress because it is in some ways. But you have control over the stress because you have control over parenting your brain, managing your mindset. right? Your own self narrative. So you can talk about the difficulty of self care in a way that prevents you from doing it. So it
Mhm.
calls you out of the work. Or you can talk about it in a way that talks you into the work. And obviously, I think our jobs as coaches is to do the latter, right? I always tell my clients, like, I'll be your coach until you're willing to take on that role yourself.
Mhm.
Because my job is literally to talk myself out of a job.
Yeah.
I will coach you long enough
Right.
to that you can borrow enough beliefs from me
Mhm.
and you can borrow the narrative that I have about you until you just kind of become that. And
Mhm.
then you just don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
And that's really like I think the ultimate goal is to really help people to self-coach, to change that narrative that no matter what they want in life, they can coach themselves into doing it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And that truly is that empowerment of like if someone feels disempowered, you can be that pull and that inspiration for a little bit, but and I love what you say is like it's about building up the power within you so that you don't need that from external sources and that you can be your own guide and listen to your own inner voice and know what's right for you. And I think that's profound. And it's like we're most qualified to help the person that we used to be. So it's like you can take all those things that you have in your life and help that person to navigate theirs and their own path. And
Yeah.
that's incredibly powerful.
It
And
is. And if you think about it, like I feel like the wellness industry kind of pulls us away from that endeavor because
Mhm.
it's always giving us another thing to optimize or,
Mhm.
improve or focus on fixing. I mean, like literally the body is sold as a problem, right? Your body is a problem.
Right.
That's what we're sold. And my counter to that is no, thinking your body is the problem is the problem. It's never
100%.
been the problem.
Right.
But I think that keeps us disabled. That narrative that someone else always knows better, that something is always broken, that you're never good enough, that you could always be more, that your numbers could be more optimized, you can biohack your way to whatever. All of that narrative just keeps us like we started this whole conversation with that outsourcing.
Mhm.
And that constant outsourcing is never going to lead to powerful self-leadership.
Mm. Right. Yeah.
It's almost like having a Sherpa that's guiding you up, a really treacherous mountain in the safest way
Mhm.
possible. But you're never learning how to read a map or read a compass because you're always just relying on that person, no matter where you are in the world, to guide you through.
Mhm.
That's disempowering because
Mhm.
someday you're going to be lost in the woods by yourself.
Right.
And what are you going to do then?
Mhm. Yeah.
Who are you going to rely on? Well, hopefully it's you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much money to be made on you feeling disempowered or feeling like you're not enough. I mean, that's where all this, marketing comes to. If you don't feel like you're enough and you need all these things, then you are a great audience for that person to market to because now you're going to try to fill that void with every single thing that gets put on the market.
6.3 trillion. That was 2023
Oh my
was the
gosh.
worth of the wellness market. I can't even imagine what it is
Wow.
today.
Mm.
6.3 trillion. For
Mhm.
for other people to tell us what intrinsically on some level we already know. Now, I'm not saying, and I think this is kind of sometimes where my messaging gets a little confused because as much as I'm an advocate for self-leadership and self-coaching and insourcing and all these things, it is not that I am against hiring the trainers and coaches and doctors and nutritionists and therapists of the world. I call them the helpers and the healers.
Mhm.
We need the helpers and the healers. Healing is a team sport.
Mhm.
However, it is up to you to discern between using that person as a crutch for the rest of your life because you're just unwilling to take on that responsibility yourself? Or are you using that person to guide you through a part of your journey that you really just need the support through and you need to learn some skill sets? I hope it's the latter
Mhm.
because any relationship can become, heavily codependent, where we're so reliant on that other person that we're not actually doing the real work that changes us.
Mhm.
And I think that any of those professions I just mentioned can fall into that space. So I'm all for working with professionals and people who know more about certain skill sets. But at the end of the day, make sure you're working with people who want to like hand you back the baton and be like, no, girl, this is your journey.
Right. Mhm.
I always say like, the reason I wrote this book is I got really tired of people wanting to follow me for my wisdom
Mhm.
because I really just wanted to teach people how to access their own.
Hmm.
And I feel like that at the end of the day, that's what any great health professional is going to do. They are going to give you the tools to help you access your own wisdom.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's so powerful. And I love, it's such a great segue. I would love for you to share a little bit about your book. What is it? What's in the book? What's it about? Who's it for? And, it's coming out, well, it'll be out by the time this comes out. So
Yeah.
definitely check out the book, but tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So the Consistency Code, A Midlife Woman's Guide to Deep Health and Happiness. It's really for any woman, anyone who is a woman or knows a woman. And I say that, I know that's like everyone literally on the
Mhm.
planet. Um, I have worked with all ages and stages of life throughout my career, but the bulk of my clientele has always been the midlife woman. And I have such a heart for that age group because they are dealing with the most amount of stress they've ever had in their life at a time when they have the least amount of hormones to help them support that level of stress. And there's, of course, a massive amount of fallout for that. Our brains are changing, our nervous system is changing, our gut health is changing, everything is changing at midlife. And yet, the wellness industry hasn't changed. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It is changing. Like, there's certainly more conversation starting to be had. But gosh, like watching my mom go through menopause was like, oh, well, just eat less and exercise more. That was the
Mhm.
script.
Right.
And so I wrote the book for a few reasons. Number one, I really wanted people to better understand how behavior change actually works. So the first part of the book is all about that, how we've kind of been sold this idea of what health is and what health actually is, how to go about creating lasting change. And then the second part of the book is actually the consistency code framework. And there's basically 4 skill sets. Underneath those skill sets, there's a lot of other skill sets, but the 4 primary skill sets are self-awareness, organization, follow through, and realignment.
Mhm.
And that's not a straight line, that's a circle. Because for the rest of our life, as long as you're a human living on this planet, you will be in one of those 4 stages.
Mhm.
Or you won't be, and it will cost you your health and happiness.
Mhm.
So that's the bulk of the book. And at the end of the book, I just talk about kind of fitting all those pieces together because a lot of us get very overwhelmed when we start seeing all the places and spaces in our life that need work.
Mhm.
And so we can get into this, this storyline that, oh, it's just so overwhelming. I'm not going to do anything. And so at the end of the book, I really talk about how do you actually pick a place to start? How do you consistently show up to focus on that thing? And when is the time to start stacking something else in?
Mhm.
So that's really what the book's all about. I always say like the consistency that I talk about in the book is not doing the same thing over and over again until you die,
Mhm.
because I think that's actually a straight path to inconsistency. I think consistency is it's really more about self-honoring. Like consistent self-honoring always looks a little different because life always looks a little different. If I didn't
Right.
sleep great last night and I have, issues with aging parents and my kid is struggling in school and I've got some like flare-ups in my shoulder because of perimenopause, like my self-care is not going to look like the same it did at 23. Right.
Yeah.
And it might not even look the same as it did yesterday. I have to honor what my body needs today. And I have to be open to the idea that it might be something very different than what I
Mhm.
think it needs.
Yeah, I love that. And so it's like that flexibility and recognizing what your individual needs are. And I love how you say on a daily basis because that's exactly what it is. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you get on a routine and you're going to stay with that for the next month. And I also love that, the framework that you shared of how we're always navigating through that. And this, life comes in cycles, the seasons come in cycles, we come in cycles, and just knowing that that's always going to happen and it's an ever evolving process of growing in yourself. And so I love that. And I think that's a great resource for women in midlife to have something to anchor to really allow themselves to feel more free within their bodies.
Yeah.
Powerful.
And I think based on this conversation, I would also say it's just a counter to perfectionism. So if you're a
Yeah.
woman listening who's always caught up in doing things perfectly when it comes to your self care, and that's the reason why you're so inconsistent with your self care, get the book because that's such a big message in the book that life is always going to throw curveballs. Sometimes it throws 10 curveballs in a day.
Mhm.
So it's not that life needs to get rid of the curveballs, it's that you need to get better at navigating the curveballs
Right.
and not stay misaligned for weeks, months, or years at a time. But how good are you? Do you have the skill set to realign yourself quickly when life throws you off course?
Right.
And because that is just a fact of life. And I feel like we're not really taught that because we're always so prescriptive. This is what it's supposed to look like. Did you get in your strength training and your interval training and eat this way and, get this many hours of sleep? And if not, you didn't do well.
Yeah, here comes the shame.
Like, that's just crazy.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Just to have that, like your podcast, Grace and Grit, to give yourself that grace, and allow yourself to know that like you're human, you're doing the best you can with what you know, and to allow yourself to move through life with a little bit more ease.
Yeah.
So I love that. And for someone who's listening and wants to get the book, wants to connect with you, where can they find you?
My website, graceandgrit.com. And if you're really specifically interested in the book, just theconsistencykode.com. But everything is on my main website. So either place will lead them to the other site. So either of those two websites is the best place.
Amazing. I'm going to put everything in the show notes. So definitely connect with Courtney. And I'm so grateful for everything you shared today. I know it's going to make a profound difference in someone's life. So thank you so
I
much.
sure hope so. Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And again, for anyone listening, there is someone who needs to hear this, and you probably know them. So share this episode so that they can also gain the benefits from this and start to change their life from the inside out. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today.
Thank you for spending this time with me today. If something in this episode stirred your truth, reminded you of your worth, or helped you see your patterns with more compassion, you're already rewiring your life. Remember, you don't have to earn your place, overgive to be valued, or shrink to keep the peace. You get to honor your voice, you get to protect your energy, you get to live aligned with who you really are. If you're ready to go deeper, explore more tools, or join a community of women walking this same path, head over to drkellykessler.com. Everything you need to continue this journey is waiting for you. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust yourself, and keep choosing the version of you who feels like home.